What happens when you put a couple in a huge isolated cabin in the middle of nowhere? Well, you get a film that explores various disturbingly toxic relationship scenarios blended masterfully with genuinely funny dialogue, of course. Wait, what? Written and directed by Hancock. Holy crap, the fact that this is his directorial debut is ridiculous. One of the things that stood out to me the most was how confident it felt in its style. It's paced really well with being just over 90 minutes. And speaking of pacing, the film relies on keeping the tension constant, but it never feels uncomfortably suffocating where it just becomes tedious and exhausting, and that just goes down to how well the film uses levity. The performances of the film were stellar. When a film works with such a small cast, it really does give that opportunity for the actors to really flex their abilities. God damn, Sophie Thatcher is quickly becoming a new it girl, and it shows you that you don't need to start off with a knockout performance. Hell, I was introduced to her in The Boogeyman, and that film was forgettable at best. But with her small but funny performance in Maxine, her amazing performance in Heretic, and now this, forget about it, she's a gem. She delivers such compelling performances where it's not just her body language or her ability to do effective monologues. No, it's the fact that she can convey her emotions so vividly, and her emotions feel so strong that they feel like they can burn a hole through the center of a frame. I mean, just take the shot from the trailer and you can see everything I mean. There was certainly a huge Stepford Wives vibe to the movie, and that's a pretty good idea of what the movie's trying to do.
Stop it! Look at me! You are different, your figure's different, your face, what you talk about, all of this is different.
The wardrobe, hairstyle, and even body language is very reminiscent of what an American housewife would look like in the mid-20th century, and I don't think that was accidental. I mean, there's literally a line early on in the film when Iris is expressing her understandable concerns to Josh, and he commands her to just smile and act happy.
Don't be all mopey and weird. Just remember to smile and act happy.
And so when Iris goes from this naive, meek character to slowly going through all the emotions for the first time, it constantly keeps you engaged because, well, you're rooting for her. There's an aspect to the film that I also couldn't ignore, and that's that it felt very dreamlike, or like it's a simulation, and I think that was purposeful. It very much reminded me of the Black Mirror episode Be Right Back with the recreation of the deceased boyfriend. And you can even argue that this film emulates what it feels like when a dream turns into a nightmare. Just look at how the movie starts with how Iris doesn't have a speck of dirt on her. She's pristine, without a hair out of place, her dress is inch perfect, but as the movie goes on and she's going through all these emotions, she gets bloodier, more disheveled. And I just really like the effect that this dreamlike quality had on this heightened reality. Nepotism loves revealing its ugly face in Hollywood like a stupid boomerang, and yet it's unfair and wrong. But damn, Jack Quaid isn't deserving of the criticism and banter he gets for allegedly having some form of influence from Dennis Quaid. This dude has been so consistent in his performances. He has that slightly awkward, almost like the nice guy hiding demons in his closet vibe that he has become so prevalent because of. He plays Josh so well. He's basically this big man-child that hides behind his misfortune and is obsessed with being wanted and having control to make up for that misfortune. On a surface level, this film is about breakups and about the many shades of love, and also about a woman who's trying not to be restrained by society's arbitrary, downright cynical scope. And that's especially noteworthy and impressive when you take into account how many times the movie loves to shift gears and include twists and turns to make it hard to read the next move the movie's gonna make. The film takes what is usually considered sloppy writing by making the surrogate lead unreliable, and instead uses that element to its advantage, because we see everything from her perspective and we're learning everything with her at the same time, so it keeps it interesting. It's difficult to be able to satiate and ultimately balance the visceral horror aspect of the film with the light, jovial nature of the dialogue. Personally, this tends to hardly ever work. I mean, many love Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, and while I can appreciate the commentary it has, I just can't say I'm a fan of that humor. And the thing is, this movie's talking about a lot of heavy subject matter that, depending on the viewer, might find uncomfortable or a trigger. But I love that the movie isn't afraid to dissect these themes and explore these ideas because it does it in a tasteful way. In spite of the twist of the film, the subject matter feels very human and relatable. Going through an existential crisis and trying to figure out how to navigate it is extremely relatable. Consider how even the conversation of programming and AI and the implication they have on society as a whole, which, by the way, isn't anything new. Films have been discussing these themes long before the last decade. But this film asks the question, if she's a robot, she can't have emotions because she just has programming, right? And under the right lens, you could argue argue, aren't humans programmed as well? Like the allegory that the film is expounding on. The feeling of knowing this person is bad for you, and if you just cut them out of your life, you know your life would be better, but you love them. There's the disconnect between using logic and emotion, and that can be because we're programmed to instinctively use emotion. Especially when you understand that the difference between using logic and emotion is that typically, the latter is thoughtful, the former impulsive. The film is coming from a female's perspective, but it's done in a way that's easily digestible, and even though a man wrote and directed this, it never felt insensitive. I really love how the film dissects these themes in clever, nuanced ways. How Kat and Patrick in that regard are especially interesting because Kat too is a Stepford wife. Despite not being a companion, she feels like an accessory, and it adds more variety to the theme at play. And Patrick was the embodiment of the film's idealistic version of when emotion and reason are in harmony. And it's to such a degree that both Patrick and Iris attain the resolve they need by the end, and both are able to make their choices based on their emotion. Patrick's choice was very human, and you empathize with it because you feel how strong his connection is with Eli, and he's self-aware enough to know that an emotion can feel so strong that he can make it his reality. He got to be in the driver's seat by the end, and because of that I thought it was very powerful. And Iris always being restrained by her lack of emotion, and when she finally had that freedom that she so desperately desired, coming to the realization that strong emotions can also be a restraint, that was just a really clever way to use that element. I'd say my only con with the film is that the scope of the subject matter that it's trying to tackle, it's too large to be condensed into just a 90-minute runtime without feeling incomplete. The film does an excellent job at going deeper and deeper into these darker places, which are very enticing and piqued my interest and also lead to opportunities for the movie to explore. The final act feels like it bit off more than it can chew because it stops trying to answer anything by the end, and instead it leaves you teased with the feeling that it's going to challenge these ideas, but the credits roll before it can do anything with it. And so because of that, some of the plot holes become more apparent, but this is a strong film, it's got great performances, and I really liked it. But that's it for me. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, and sincerely yours, Anthony.